Everyone feared the millionaire until the waitress revealed his hidden, incredible secret. The diner buzzed with whispers, a whirlpool of gossip swirling around Clara as she poured coffee for the regulars, her heart heavier than the plates she balanced. Everyone in town had their say about Raymond, the reclusive millionaire who lived in the crumbling mansion at the edge of town. They said he was cursed, that he brought the blight on their livelihoods. Yet, as she caught a glimpse of him through the window, staring out alone, she saw something no one else did. Sadness etched into his features, a loneliness that mirrored her own. Every day, Clara put on a brave face, juggling work, her 2 children, and the weight of her mother's illness like a tightrope walker strung against the wind. The diner was her sanctuary, a place where she could serve comfort food and solace, dishing out warmth in the form of hearty breakfasts and compassionate smiles. Yet each cheerless morning felt like an uphill climb, especially with bills piling high on her kitchen table like unwelcome guests. The townsfolk treated her like family, offering their kind words and free refills, but the invisible chains of financial struggle were forever tied around her. Fate, it seemed, was determined to intertwine her life with that of Raymond. One slow afternoon, while wiping down the counter, Clara noticed Raymond shuffle in, his posture stooped, a beat-up baseball cap pulled low. The diner fell silent, a collective breath held in fear. She could almost hear their minds racing. Why was he here? What did he want? They stared, eyes darting, as if he were a ghost. Clara stepped forward, offering a simple smile. "Can I get you something?" The way he looked at her, as if she were light breaking through his darkness, took her by surprise. There was a flicker of connection. "Just a coffee, please," he replied, his voice rough but soft. As she poured, a friendship began to brew. Clara found herself slipping into conversation with Raymond over the weeks, learning of his lost family, the tragedies that shackled him to sorrow. He was more than just the millionaire. She discovered a man hidden beneath layers of shame, grappling with heartbreak. And as their bond deepened, Clara felt emboldened. Hope began to rise in her heart. But then disaster struck. The town faced a crisis as torrential rain swept through, flooding homes and causing chaos. Clara's instincts kicked, and she rallied the diner staff and townsfolk, urging them to work together. They needed to stand strong, but the fear was palpable. It was the day Raymond watched from the shadows, hesitating when Clara turned to him. "You have the power to help," she shouted over the driving rain, desperation lacing her tone. "Your resources could save lives. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue amidst the panic. Clara's heart raced as she uncovered an astounding truth. Raymond had been quietly funding their recovery efforts all along, his donations cloaked in anonymity. The realization ignited a thrill of hope, but time was running out. The flood's wouldn't wait. Would he finally step out of the shadows and confront the judgment he feared, or remain a spectator to the very heart of the community he wished to care for? For Clara, the struggle within her mirrored her longing to reconnect with her estranged father. Would they both find courage to bridge the gaps, keeping them tethered to their pain? As the floodwaters threatened to swallow them all whole, Clara felt the weight of the world on her shoulders, but within, a fire began to flicker. Hope, transformation, and the rush of untold stories set free awaited just beyond the storm. The rain pounded down like 1,000 drums, relentless and unforgiving. Clara stood at the diner's entrance, gripping the door frame to steady herself against the gusting winds. Water swirled around her ankles, transforming the familiar streets into a nightmare. She glanced around, her heart pounding as she focused on the familiar faces of townsfolk spreading out in front of her. They were scared, and so was she. "Clara," a voice called from behind. It was Lucy, The diner cook, eyes wide with panic. We need to move now. Clara nodded, her mind racing. Get everyone inside. We need to set up a safe place for the kids and elderly. She knew they had to unite, to pull together as a community. And suddenly, she felt a spark of determination, a whisper of what could be, despite the darkness pressing in around them. And there he was. Raymond pulled his heavy coat tight around him as he emerged from the drifting rain, his eyes scanning the crowd like he was searching for something or someone. Clara's heart quickened at the sight. "Raymond," she shouted, cutting through the clamor of falling water. "We need your help." He hesitated, his face a mask of internal conflict, but Clara saw the flicker of resolve in his eyes. She remembered the pain he had shared over numerous cups of coffee, heartbreak, loss, guilt. "You can do this," she urged, stepping closer, her voice unwavering. "You can save us. Help us save each other." The crowd turned towards him, whispers rising like smoke, but Clara stepped forward again, lifting her chin defiantly. "You can't hide behind your wealth or your fears any longer. We're in this together." Every second felt like an eternity. She dared to believe he could step into the light. Then, as if pulled by some invisible thread, Raymond stepped forward. For the first time, he seemed to stand taller, his shoulders straightening. His voice boomed above the rain. "What do you need me to do?" There was a collective intake of breath. Clara's heart soared. "We need supplies. Blankets, food, whatever you can provide to shelter our neighbors." Her mind raced with all the ramifications of what he could offer. Raymond's resources, his influence. This was their moment to turn despair into hope. Without another word, he nodded, determination etched across his face. The spell of silence shattered, and townspeople leaped into action. Clara felt a wave of relief wash over her, but the urgency hung thick in the air. "Lucy," Clara shouted, her voice pushing through the chaos. "Grab a notepad. We need an inventory list of supplies." The diner erupted into a flurry of movement. Raymond's face was alight with purpose now, calling upon his assistants who lived in the mansion. The storm outside raged on, but Clara felt a thin thread of hope weaving through the chaos, binding her to the towering figure beside her. With every person they helped, she found herself wondering, could they dig their way out together? Time passed in a whirl of frantic energy. Clara swept between families, offering comfort, directing people, staving off panic as they brought in mounds of salvage supplies. Joy rekindled her spirit each time she saw a neighbor smile, a child laugh. In the face of uncertainty, daylight began to break through the clouds. A rainbow emerged on the horizon, fragile yet vibrant. It painted the sky in hues of hope. Clara looked at Raymond, his eyes shimmering with relief, and something else, a connection deepening between them, igniting a warmth in her chest. But buried questions still lingered in her heart. Would Raymond truly become part of this community? Could they each confront their pasts and emerge stronger? When a sudden crack of thunder echoed, Clara jolted, remembering they still had to face the aftermath of the storm. They had made a start, but a bigger battle loomed ahead, one that would challenge everything they had begun to build. Would they rise from the wreckage, or would the shadows of their fears consume them? Clara kept moving, her heart racing with a mixture of hope and dread. The crowd outside the diner was starting to take shape, their fears momentarily quelled by the collective efforts spilled out before them. People hustled in from the rain, bringing whatever they could: old blankets, canned goods, and well-worn jackets that had seen better days. More than the objects, they brought a spirit of togetherness that Clara hoped would blanket the town like the supplies they were gathering. "Let us set up a distribution line," she said, rallying her fellow townsfolk. "Everyone will need something different. Parents will want blankets for their kids, and the elderly need a warm drink." The clamor of approval swept through the group, and Clara felt her heart swell amidst the chaos. Raymond was in his element, barking orders with surprising vigor. "Get the supplies to the back room. We can sort them there." Clara stole glances at him, a mix of admiration and disbelief flaring up. This man, once weighed down by insecurities, was transformed before her eyes. He wore the mantle of leadership and responsibility like a coat of armor, and she found herself drawn to him even more. Before long, Lucy had pinned a makeshift sign above the serving area, Community Center. The diner, once a haven for pie and strong coffee, was morphing into a shelter and a refuge. Clara was proud, but knew the shadows lingered. The rain continued its tattoo on the roof, a reminder that they were still trapped in the storm's clutches. "Clara, do you think we'll be all right?" A quavering voice broke her focus. It was Mrs. Henderson, the widow who used to bring in peach cobblers. Her eyes, usually warm with laughter, were clouded with trepidation. Clara knelt before her, instinctively taking the older woman's hands in her own. "We will be, Mrs. Henderson. Look around you. We're stronger together. The storm may be overwhelming, but we've got each other." Mrs. Henderson's hands shook slightly, but as Clara held on, she spotted a glimmer of reassurance beginning to bloom in those tired eyes. That small moment of trust, a shared connection amid fear, reminded Clara why she fought so hard for this community. They worked. Laughter and encouragement mingled with the sound of rain pounding against the windows. Clara felt the rhythm of their efforts resonate like a heartbeat. Each face told a story, the lush fabric of their lives woven together in a way they hadn't realized until now. But then, Raymond called out from the back room, his tone serious. "Clara, we've got a problem." She rushed over, curiosity and concern colliding within her. As she reached the doorway, she froze. The supplies were still piled high, but fear replaced the warmth as she processed the scene. Townspeople stood tense and uncertain, their glances darting toward the back. The storage room door was swinging open, framed by the looming shadow of a man. It was Murray, the town's mayor, face etched in worry. "There's been a flood at the community center. People are trapped. We need to act fast," he exclaimed, urgency vibrating in his voice. Clara exchanged a glance with Raymond, and in that moment, everything shifted again. Whatever bond they had started to create felt fragile as they faced the reality of what lay ahead. The tension snapped like a tight rope, and Clara felt her heart plummet. Together, they had begun to build something new, but could it withstand this new chaos? She knew this moment could either break them or bind them tighter than before. "Gather everyone," Clara shouted, her voice clear and resolute above the confusion in the room. "We need to get to the community center and help." As whispers of agreement circulated, Clara couldn't ignore the stirring in her chest. They were on the precipice of something larger, and readiness demanded more than hope. What if this was their chance not just to rescue, but to actually face their own fears? "Clara," Raymond stepped close, an intensity in his gaze. "This is dangerous." "Maybe so," she replied, pulling in a breath, "but I won't let fear dictate our actions any longer." As they prepared, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change again. Would they emerge on the other side, hand in hand, or would the storm take everything they fought for? In the face of rising uncertainty, she pressed forward, determination igniting a fire within her. And as the first few people stepped out into the rain, Clara took stock of what was to come. They may be faced with floodwaters, but the true challenge would reveal the torrent in their hearts. Would they find resilience against all odds, or would they drown in dark waters of doubt once more? The rain was unrelenting, each drop punctuating the urgency of their mission. Clara stepped outside, her shoes splashing through puddles that reflected chaotic flashes of lightning. She could feel the adrenaline pumping through her veins, fueling her resolve. Around her, people grabbed their jackets tighter, steeling themselves against the fierce wind that swirled like a living thing. "All right, everyone," she called, her voice cutting through the cacophony of thunder. "We work as a team. Stay close and move quickly." Raymond, bulky and steadfast beside her, nodded as he rallied a small group. Together, they dashed through the downpour, the dim lights of the community center barely visible in the distance. Clara's thoughts raced as she felt the weight of her responsibility. What awaited them inside? How many lives had been affected? A chilling realization bubbled to the surface. Fear sown by the storm was now a tangible force. But as they approached, Clara noticed flickering shadows inside the community center windows. Hope ignited within her. Maybe help had already arrived. They shoved the door open, the hinges squealing in protest against how hard the wind howled. The scene inside crushed her spirit before it could even settle. Water surged across the floor, chairs and tables floating like abandoned vessels. In the corner, a small group of people huddled together, frightened but alive. Their faces lit up with confusion as Clara's eyes fell on them. "Murray!" she yelled, spotting the mayor directing a few volunteers. His face was drawn, etched with lines of anxiety and determination. "What's the situation?" "It's bad, Clara," he said, scooping up a bucket. Water coming from the broken pipes in the back. "We need to get everyone to safety. Some are trapped in the storage room." Clara's heart clenched. This was what they feared, the exact chaos they had once only imagined. She fought against her rising panic. "We have to move fast. Who's with me?" Just then, the crowd thinned in silence, every eye drawn to the back room as a faint cry echoed into the chaos. Clara turned, her heart racing. The sound was desperate. "Lucy," she called, "help me find a way to get these people out." With a nod, Lucy rushed toward Clara, her expression focused. Together, they charged for the back where the cries grew louder, thick with dismay. As they approached, Clara glanced over her shoulder to see Raymond navigating the rising water, helping the trapped residents toward the exit. Their hands worked tirelessly, and Clara drew strength from their determination. "Hang on, we're coming," Clara shouted, pulling open the door to the storage room. A rush of steamy air hit her face, infused with fear and anxiety, but Clara pushed it aside, forcing herself into the dimness. Inside, a group of children huddled against one another, their wide eyes filled with panic. "Clara," one of them gasped, "we can't get out." Her heart broke at the sight of their fear. She knelt down, instinctively reaching for the smallest boy. "It's okay. We're here. Can you stand?" With trembling limbs, he nodded, and she ushered him forward. But just as Clara felt the warmth of hope bloom within her, another creaking sound echoed from above. Dust fell like rain as another part of the ceiling began to sag. "Get out now," Clara yelled, adrenaline surging as she felt time slipping through her fingers. "Move!" The children scrambled toward her, and with each one she ushered out, the weight of responsibility settled deeper in her heart. Exiting the room, she was silhouetted against the hellish backdrop of rain and chaos. Clara turned back to Raymond, who had his hands full guiding people away, and felt her heart shift with a pang of pride. They were becoming a force. In that moment, as everyone worked together amidst the flood, she realized that no storm could drown the spirit they had ignited. But the future still loomed uncertain, and Clara couldn't help but wonder, with all their combined courage, would they be enough to outlast whatever lay ahead? As they prepared to face the next wave, a thought struck. "Clara, what if this storm was just the beginning?" The thought sent a shiver down her spine, mingling dread with the flickers of hope. What if the real battle was yet to come? Clara's heart raced as she stepped back into the main room of the community center, a heavy burden settling on her shoulders. The water level was rising quickly, swamping the chairs and tables that had once provided comfort and safety. Faces, once familiar, were now twisted with fear and fatigue. She could feel their eyes on her, seeking hope in the midst of chaos. "Over here," Murray shouted, gesturing toward a group struggling to stay afloat in the floodwaters. Clara saw the panic etched into their features, the desperation palpable. She thought of her own family, their faces flashing through her mind like static electricity. "Lucy," Clara said urgently, "I need you to help them, please." Without waiting for a reply, she turned back to the children, who were still watching her with wide, anxious eyes. "We have to be brave right now. Hold my hand and stay close. We're going to make it out of here together." The smallest boy, still trembling, nodded vigorously as Clara took his hand, feeling warmth spread through her as she caught the courage in his eyes, Then, just as they moved toward the door, a loud crack echoed through the center. Clara whipped around, dread coiling in her stomach as she saw a part of the ceiling starting to splinter. "Go! Everyone go!" she shouted, urgency spilling from her voice as she shoved the children toward the exit. Raymond called out, rafts of sound cutting through the clamoring storm. "Clara, we need to get out now. I can help you with the kids." As she turned to him, the ceiling creaked alarmingly, dust sifting down like snowflakes. Clara's heart stuttered in her chest. "No, we can't leave anyone behind. We're not done here. Clara." Lucy's voice cut through the tension, desperation slicing at the edges of her calm. "We can't hold this. What if it collapses?" That thought struck Clara like a lightning bolt. If they didn't get everyone out soon, they could be trapped too. Compromise ripped through her mind. "Raymond, help me get the children out first." With grim determination, they charged back toward the shaking room. Clara reached for another child, feeling their soft grasp. She could feel the walls pressing in on them, but there was still hope. That singular ember flickered inside her, urging her forward. Just then, behind them, the shaking worsened. The ceiling shuddered with the force of the wind, and panic gripped her heart. "Let us move," she shouted, shoving the children ahead of her. Once outside, they stumbled into the open, gasping. Rain lashed against their skin, but for that moment, it felt like salvation. Clara looked around at the others, some too terrified to move, their faces reflecting that same fear. They needed her, and the pressure mounted within her chest. "Get to the back. We are not giving up," she urged, sweeping her fingers through the air, pushing back against the rain and adding clarity to the chaos. But then, from the corner of her eye, she spotted a figure emerging from the shadows of the community center. A tall man, drenched and faceless, lurking behind debris. "Who are you?" Clara shouted, asserting what little authority she could muster. And suddenly, she felt the chill of fear twist in her gut once more. He stepped forward, revealing a face that sent ripples of recognition through her. It was the millionaire she had heard whispers about, Timothy Blake, a man known for his sharp business acumen and ruthless nature. "What are you doing here?" she demanded, but inside, her heart was racing for a different reason. He held up his hands, dripping with rain and something else, determination. "I came to help," but just as hope flickered, a resounding crash erupted from behind him as more of the ceiling collapsed. Clara's eyes widened. "Get out!" she screamed, instinctively pushing past the unknown man, dragging the children away as the rainwater swallowed the chaos behind them. But as she ran, that single thought nagged at her. Why was he here? What did he truly want? As they surged towards safety, a storm raged outside, and the real storm within Clara began to brew. What if this millionaire had more to offer than anyone ever imagined? What secrets lay hidden in his past, and would they now affect her and the community she fought to protect? Clara's heart thundered in her chest as they stumbled forward, dragging the terrified children through the relentless downpour. The sheets of rain blurred her vision, but she could still feel the solid weight of fear wrapping around her, nearly squeezing the breath from her lungs. Timothy Blake's ghostly figure lingered in her mind. What was he playing at? The children, wide-eyed and shivering, huddled close to her side, seeking solace. Clara forced herself to swallow her own worries, to focus on them. "Stay with me. We're almost there," she called, the words spilling out with a mix of urgency and hope. Behind her, the sounds of destruction echoed through the air. Wooden beams strained against the storm, and the community center groaned like a living beast caught in a trap. Clara risked a glance back, and there he stood, the millionaire, pushing through the debris with an energy that felt oddly misplaced for someone of his status. "What is he doing?" she whispered under breath. Was he trying to escape? Or was there more to him than the townsfolk had rumored? They rounded a corner and spotted a cluster of community members gathered near an old pickup. Murray and Lucy ushered others toward the vehicle, their faces a testament to the urgency that dripped in the air, intricately mixed with surprise at Clara's sudden group of children. "Clara!" Lucy shouted, relief washing over her features. "Get them in the truck. We need to get out of the flood zone." Clara nodded, nudging the kids forward one by one. As they climbed into the back of the truck, she allowed herself a brief moment of joy at the sight of them securing themselves against one another, whispering reassurances in the chaos. But before she could climb in herself, there was that figure again, Timothy, stepping out of the darkness, his clothes plastered against his skin. "Wait," he called, raising an arm as if to halt the impending departure. "What do you want?" Clara snapped, irritation and fear coursing through her veins. She had no time for games or hidden agendas. "I'm here to help," he insisted, the sincerity in his voice startling her. "I have a plan to get everyone to higher ground. The flood is just beginning. Why should we trust you?" Clara countered, narrowing her eyes. The storm roared around them, and the shadows danced across his face. "Because I know this town. I may not have lived here, but I've studied every inch of it. I can lead you to safety. Below the old mill, there are tunnels routes carved long ago. We can get out of the floodplain before it engulfs us all." His voice carried an unexpected authority, a different side to the man she thought she knew. Murray interjected, glancing at Clara. "We need to make a choice. We can't wait much longer." Clara's heart raced under the pressure. Could she put her faith in him? Would his knowledge truly save them? She took a breath, the cold air stinging her lungs. The children shivered in the truck, their eyes wide with fear. "Fine," she said finally, her voice steady but faintly trembling. "But if anything goes wrong, you're responsible." She locked eyes with Timothy, searching for any hint of deception. "I promise, I won't let you down," he said, an unexpected vulnerability flickering across his features. Clara hesitated, anxiety gnawing at her, but she climbed into the cab of the truck. "Let us go then," she shouted. The engine roared to life, and they pulled away from the chaos at the community center. As they drove, rain beat against the windshield, and Clara stole glances at Timothy, who sat silently with a furrowed brow. The weight of the unknown pressed heavily on her. Why had he wanted to help? What did he truly want from the town he had kept his distance from for so long? A figure appeared in the road ahead, waving frantically. Clara's heart dropped as she recognized one of the elders from town, drenched and struggling against the currents. "Stop!" she shouted. The truck skidded to a halt, water splashing against its sides as the group assessed the scene. Clara's breath quickened. In this moment, she faced the ultimate question. Would they extend their hand to a community member they might save, or would they turn back into the storm? She locked eyes with Timothy, and a revelation dawned. Perhaps the answers she sought about him lay here. Perhaps the real test had just begun. "Get her in here," Lucy shouted, panic lacing her voice. The elder, Mrs. Hall, flailed her arms, struggling against the current that twisted around her legs. Clara's heart pounded louder than the storm. "Mrs. Hall!" Clara yelled, her voice cracking. Without a second thought, she flung herself out of the truck, plunging into the icy water. The rain lashed at her skin, mixing with the salty taste of fear on her lips. She could see Mrs. Hall's terrified eyes searching for help, desperate and confused. Timothy shouted something she couldn't hear over the chaos, but she didn't turn back. All that mattered was reaching the woman who had spent decades serving the town with kindness, the same woman who had taught Clara to bake pies in her small kitchen. "Grab my hand," Clara called, extending her arm as she fought against the water's grip. The current tugged her, but she was determined. Every inch closer felt like a small victory. Inch by inch, she propelled herself to the elder. Mrs. Hall reached out, her hand trembling, and Clara's fingers wrapped around her wrist, steadying her. "I've got you," she reassured, every word imbued with the warmth of hope. With both their efforts, Clara pulled the elderly woman closer until their arms intertwined. Then, together, they struggled back as Clara shouted for the truck. "Lift her up. We need to, Clara. Look out." Timothy yelled, and she whipped her head around just in time to see a tree limb careening toward her. She ducked instinctively, but the icy water surged, lifting her off her feet as panic grabbed at her throat. The world spun for a moment. She thought she would drown, swallowed by dark water. But then a firm grip helped her back up. "Timothy, hold on," he urged, and they struggled together against the current. Heart racing, Clara clung to Mrs. Hall, both of them panting as they fought through the chaos, dragging each other back toward the truck. The engine hummed like a heartbeat, a beacon of safety amidst the chaos. "Help! We need help!" Timothy shouted as they stumbled toward the truck. Murray immediately leaned down, his eyes wide. He reached out and grasped Mrs. Hall, pulling her into the relative safety of the vehicle. Clara, still catching her breath, felt her own doubts crash against her. The storm was relentless, and if they hadn't stopped, if they hadn't risked the time, but they had Mrs. Hall looked frail and shaken but alive, and Clara's heart swelled with gratitude. "Thank you, Clara," she whispered, eyes shimmering with gratitude. That was enough to melt away the chill of doubt swirling in Clara's mind. Timothy clambered back into the truck, dripping and out of breath. He glanced at Clara, a fragile yet sincere expression on his face. "I just wanted to help. I didn't know I know," she interrupted, feeling an unexpected connection to this enigmatic man in that moment, despite the uncertainty that still shrouded him. As they sped away from the treacherous flood zone, Clara watched the water creep ever higher, threatening to consume their town hall. The sky crackled with furious energy, but they had made it this far. Together. "Where do we go now?" Murray asked, turning to Timothy. "There's a safe spot I know of." He paused, looking closely at Clara again. "Once we reach the mill, you'll see. I can explain everything there. Just trust me one last time." Would she? Clara weighed the choice before her, balancing trust against the lingering shadows of her doubts. He had saved Mrs. Hall, but what else did he hold back? As the truck jostled over debris, a low rumble echoed from the mill's direction, shaking the windows. "Timothy, what's that?" Clara asked, alarm coursing through her. A distant scream pierced the air. Panic surged anew. They weren't finished yet. Could Timothy really lead them to safety? Or would the secrets he held become their undoing? The rain fell harder, the mill loomed closer, and Clara couldn't shake the feeling that the real storm had just begun. The mill came into view, a dark silhouette against the tempest. Its old wooden beams groaned, echoing the turmoil outside, and Clara felt a shiver run down her spine. She stole glances at Timothy, his jaw set tight as he gripped the steering wheel. Was he hiding something crucial? As they pulled closer, she saw lanterns flickering in the mud-splattered windows, a beacon amid the storm. The groaning sound now morphed into something mechanical, a whirring almost drowning out the rain's relentless drumming. "Timothy, what's happening in there?" Clara couldn't help herself. The nervous energy spilled from her. "They're running the pumps," he replied, his voice strained but steady. "They're trying to manage the flooding and save the mill before it's too late." "Are people in there?" Clara felt the weight of anxiety clawing at her. "It's just the workers. They're trying their best." His eyes locked onto hers, a flickering hope hidden beneath the surface. "But we need to hurry." Murray leaned back in his seat, eyes scanning the road as they approached the entrance, the earth shaking with a more powerful rumble. "We can't risk it. This storm, it's a monster." But Clara's mind was racing, and doubt still swirled. Why was Timothy so insistent on coming here? Hadn't they done enough? But then she thought of Mrs. Hall and the respect the elderly woman had always commanded. "No," she said finally, firming her resolve. "We can't leave them, not when there's still a chance." With the engine sputtering, the truck screeched to a halt just outside the mill. Clara flung the door open, rain mixing with her hesitation. "We need to help," she shouted, voice rising over the storm. Timothy hesitated, glancing back at the water rising around the truck tires. "Claire, no. They're in there," she insisted, already stepping into the downpour. The pounding offered a sense of urgency that pulled her forward. As they dashed through the mud, Clara's heart pounded, matched only by the relentless storm. The entrance loomed ahead, the air thick with the scent of wet wood and machinery. Just inside, Workers scrambled to adjust pumps that gurgled and sputtered in the chaos. "Hey, over here!" a voice shouted from inside. A flurry of movement caught Clara's eye. A figure stumbled, nearly falling as they struggled with a tangled hose. Clara didn't think. She rushed over, grabbing the hose and tugging at it, sliding it out of the worker's grasp. They exchanged frantic glances, the urgency of the moment electrifying the air. "Thanks," the worker gasped, eyes wide with surprise. "We thought we had lost it completely. What can we do to help?" Clara asked, adrenaline pumping through her veins. "Just here. We need to keep this section running. If the pumps fail, the flooding will sweep us all away." Together, Clara and the worker fought against the water, wrestling hoses and fastening connections, the storm's ferocity roaring outside like a wild beast. Timothy and Murray joined them, urgency transforming their camaraderie into a fierce determination. As they worked, Clara caught glimpses of their surroundings, the old machinery, the faces of workers grim with determination, and she recognized a peculiar bond forming amidst the chaos. But beneath the frenetic energy, something else lingered unspoken between her and Timothy, a tension igniting with every shared glance. Then the rumbles crescendoed into monstrous roars as the ground trembled beneath them. "What is happening?" Clara shouted, breathless that a distant explosion reverberated, breaking through the storm's fury. It felt like a warning, a sign that their efforts may not be enough. "Clara!" Timothy's voice was urgent, cutting through the noise. "We need to go now." But Clara hesitated, looking towards the chaos within the mill. "Timothy, I can't leave them." His eyes were dark with urgency. "If we stay here, we may not make it out." In that moment, her heart ached with the weight of the choice ahead. Could they save both the workers and themselves? And just then, she saw shadows looming behind them, the last workers making their escape, but beyond them, an even darker figure appeared at the entrance, staggering in the pouring rain. "What the heck is that?" Clara's heart lurched as she recognized the familiar face among the chaos, and her questions multiplied. What was going on at the mill? Was their haven turning into a nightmare? Would they ever escape the storm's wrath? Clara's heart raced as she squinted through the heavy rain, the storm swirling in a frenzy around her. The dark figure stumbling toward them was unmistakable. It was Mr. Hall, the mill's owner, the man who had mysteriously vanished for weeks, only to reappear now, drenched and disoriented. "Mr. Hall," she shouted, forcing her way through the chaos as workers ducked around her. Timothy stayed close, his presence a solid anchor amidst the storm. The wealthy man's expression shifted from relief to confusion as he reached them. You shouldn't be here." His voice was hoarse, barely audible over the wind. "The mill, it's in jeopardy. Tell us something we don't know." Murray growled, leaning against a wall, trying to catch his breath. Clara's instincts kicked in. "Mr. Hall, what happened to you? Why are you back now? We need your help." She took a step closer, feeling the urgency enclosing them like an iron grip. He stumbled again, nearly losing his footing. I've been away, gathering funds to save the mill. Someone's trying to sabotage our operations." His words tumbled out in a flurry, his eyes darting anxiously. Timothy's grip on Clara tightened. "Sabotage? What do you mean?" "The pumps," Mr. Hall gasped, glancing toward the crew struggling to keep water at bay. "They've been tampered with. I feared it was just the storm, but I saw someone in the shadows." Clara's head spun. "Sabotage?" She exchanged a look with Timothy, and in that split second they knew. It wasn't only the storm they were battling. There was a dark foe hiding within the shadows of the mill. Without hesitation, the urgency propelled them further into action. "We can't just stand around here," Clara shouted. "Can you help us fix the pumps? We need to get them working right now." "Follow me," Mr. Hall called, taking a shaky step toward the inner machinery room as he stumbled again, nearly losing his balance. Clara and Timothy supported him, keeping him upright. Murray fell into step behind them, his expression torn between doubt and determination. This isn't right. How do we know he's not the one behind all this? Clara shot Murray a look. What else can we do? He's all we have. Adrenaline surged through her. They had no time for arguments. Together, they made their way through the chaotic scene inside the mill, dodging debris inspired by the storm and responding workers. The sounds of shouting mixed with the metal cries of machines failing under pressure filled the air, and with every step, the weight of the moment pressed heavier on Clara's shoulders. They reached the pump room, a tangled mess of hoses and machinery. Clara felt the panic rise. What now? We need to check the valves, make sure they're not blocked. Mr. Hall's voice steadied, a flicker of his usual authority shining through the chaos. If we can get them cleared, we might stand a chance. As Clara and Timothy worked with Mr. Hall, shifting and adjusting, the tension in the room mounted. Each grunting heave felt monumental, the urgency palpable. With every turn of a wrench, Clara's mind raced. Who would want to destroy the mill? And why now, when everything was at stake? In a moment of quiet, Clara paused, wiping the rain from her eyes. Mr. Hall, if someone is sabotaging your work, you need to tell us everything. We need to know what we're up against. He hesitated, glancing nervously at the shadows beyond the room. He finally spoke. There are deals, people I've crossed. If they thought this mill was about to fail, they'd have a reason to see it destroyed. Suddenly, an earth-shattering crash reverberated through the mill. Clara's heart dropped. What was that? Back! Everyone back! Timothy shouted, grabbing Clara and pulling her away from the machinery. The noise grew louder, and Clara turned just in time to see a wave of water crashing through the doorway, charging into the pump room. Run! It's too late, Mr. Hall shouted, his fear blaring through the storm's roar. Clara's heart pounded wildly as they lunged toward the exit, the water rising fast. They plunged into the chaos only to find themselves face to face with a figure emerging from the shadows. Clara's stomach twisted as she recognized the features. It was a familiar face, but filled with a purpose she didn't expect. What are you doing here? She gasped. Just then, another explosion rocked the mill, sending everyone tumbling. With the threat of total disaster looming, Clara felt fear grip her heart. Is this the end for them all, trapped between sabotage and a rising tide? Amidst the chaos, Clara felt a wave of desperation wash over her. Every ounce of her strength was tested, and the heartbreak of what could be lost gripped her tightly. The figure before her, the one she recognized, was none other than Timothy Blake, but there was something beyond fear in his eyes now. It was determination. Suddenly, the mill shuddered violently, and wooden beams splintered, sending debris showering down like rain. We need to move, Timothy yelled, urgency clawing at his voice. Clara grabbed the hand of Timothy's, her heart racing. Which way? She cried, glancing anxiously around as fear and water surged ever higher. The sound of crashing gears filled the air, drowning out thoughts of doubt. Follow me, Timothy shouted again, plowing forward as Clara squeezed past workers scrambling for safety, leaving the panic behind them for just a moment. The adrenaline fueled her as they dashed through the chaos. Bursting through an exit, they emerged into the tempest outside. Rain battered their faces, and gusts of wind howled like wild beasts. Over here, Murray beckoned from the pickup, thrashing against the storm. Get everyone in, Clara shouted, her voice cutting through the downpour. If they could rally together one last time, they might have a fighting chance. Timothy turned back to the mill, determination burning in his gaze. I can't leave them, he said, his voice resolute, although a hint of vulnerability flickered underneath. Then help us save them, Clara called out, locking her eyes onto his. In that moment, she recognized that both of their lives had been marked by fear, but also transformed by this struggle. Maybe, just maybe, they could find strength in each other. All right, Timothy gasped, his breath steaming in the cold air. I'll help get everyone out. As they rallied more townsfolk, a chorus of voices, now rising together, Clara felt hope begin to kindle. Side by side with Timothy, They waded back toward the beleaguered mill. Every step set against the thrumming rain played a part in their shared mission to protect the town. Inside the mill, the chaos flowed through every crevice. Bodies moved, some desperate, others still sending prayers to the storm. Clara's heart raced as she caught glimpses of weary faces lit by flickering lights. Each shout of a name fueled her resolve. "Lucy!" Clara cried, spotting her friend near the massive machinery. Together, they lifted a substantial debris piece blocking the path. "We're getting you out." "Clara!" her friend exclaimed, relief washing over her. With each person they saved, Clara felt the chains of fear lifting. In the face of uncertainty, she reclaimed her power. Timothy, carrying supplies for the next wave of those behind them, caught her eye, and an unspoken bond grew stronger. Then came a cry from deeper within the mill. A worker was trapped under fallen wood. Clara rushed to help, but she hesitated. "Timothy, I can't lift this alone. I'll help," he urged, positioning himself beside her. Together, they heaved the debris away, and one by one, they helped the workers escape. The flood surged around them, pulling at their feet. Yet, Clara felt lighter than she had in ages. In stepping up, she had found purpose, camaraderie, and renewal. Just as they began to lead the last group to safety, the mill let out one final groan, echoing through the air a cacophony of exhaustion. "Move! Now!" Timothy yelled, urgency infusing every word as they dashed toward the exit. Once outside, they stumbled toward the truck where townsfolk huddled together, fear fading, replaced with warmth and solidarity. The truck's lights sparked a beacon of hope in the darkness. As Clara surveyed their small community, the adrenaline faded. She saw the relief on their faces and felt a warmth radiating through her heart. They had faced the storm and survived together. The burden of fear was no longer just hers. They had become a family bonded by resilience. Amidst the shouts of relief and gratitude, Clara turned to Timothy. "Thank you," she breathed, and his eyes softened as realization dawned between them. Maybe, together, they could find healing from their past. As the rain began to lessen, a thin glow broke through the clouds, illuminating their faces. The shadows of their former lives dissipated, revealing a renewed semblance of hope. Suddenly, Murray stepped forward, a smile emerging despite the chaos behind them. "You brought us together today, Clara. You and Timothy," he said, the admiration palpable in his voice. "You showed everyone what it means to fight for love and community." Clara's heart swelled with joy, knowing they had turned darkness into light. "Let us lift each other up," she said, fingers interlocking with Timothy's as they looked around. "There's more to rebuild, and we can do this." And as the communities is set to work, laughter began to break the tension, joy began to sprout, just like the new blooms of spring. In giving their all, they had not only saved each other, but forged connections that would last beyond the storm. This moment transformed them all. Clara smiled at Timothy, and he returned it, both with the understanding that their journeys were intertwined now. Together, they would face whatever came next, not as strangers, but as partners bound by their choices, the promise of tomorrow shining through the remnants of the storm. This was more than survival. This was the beginning of a true transformation. Now is the moment for you to join this journey. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support because it really helps. Comment your feelings about this heartwarming ending and share your thoughts. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation show them the power of community and hope. Together, let us spread these inspiring tales.